Today on Bridges, we're going to talk about how to respond when someone that you love is addicted to drugs. Welcome to Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter. I am so glad that you could join us today. Today we're going to talk about how to respond when someone that you love is addicted to drugs. And joining me to help me talk about that today is Valerie Faulkner, and she's going to share her journey of being married to somebody that was addicted to drugs for many, many years. And Valerie, I appreciate you coming out today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, your journey's been, I know that it's a happy story now, but it was a long and a painful journey for you and your husband, Derek. So let's start out with, when it comes to drug addiction, was this something that happened after you married, or?
He had a history of drugs, and he told me about it when we met. We met in church, and I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm glad you're coming to church, and you must be changed. And he was changed for a while. It started back before we got married, but I didn't know it.
Yeah. But when you got married, you really were thinking that addiction was in the past and wouldn't be something that would crop up again.
Exactly.
So how did it crop up again, or how did you become aware that it was a problem?
It's kind of a blur. Things were missing, or he wasn't where he said he was going to be, or money was gone. I couldn't understand it. It was very strange. And I remember him going to a 30-day rehab, and I knew so little about drugs. I thought, oh, well, he's going to be cured. Like you go to the hospital and you have an operation and it's over. So, and now, of course, I know that 30 days is a nice stepping stone, but it's just long enough to get it out of your system, really, or even may not be long enough to get out of your system. You have
Depending
to deal with
how long you've been using.
Yes, and then you have to deal with the issues, the underlying things that cause you to have the chemical addiction.
Well, I want us to have this conversation today because I'm sure that many of you that are watching, it may be that you're married to somebody that is addicted to drugs. It may be your teenager. It may be your adult child, someone in the family. And one of the things that we know about addiction is that it's not just the person that's addicted that's sick, but it's really everybody involved with them is struggling in some way with this extreme life-controlling problem. So I wanted us to open up this conversation and help people today so that we'd know how to respond. Because, Valerie, one of the things that you're sharing is that you weren't in the drug world. So, I'm not in the drug world, so I wouldn't know the immediate signs. I wouldn't know that it might take a long time to walk out being clean and sober. I can remember certainly a time in my life that I would have said, Valerie, well, basically, if you just pray about it, that it's all going to work out. And I praise God for any time that it does that. But for a lot of people, addiction is a long road.
Yes.
And usually the wife or the husband or mom or dad is caught by surprise. Like they usually see a lot of confusing, contradictory behaviors and don't quite know what to make of it. And then when the addiction is revealed, they blame themselves. It's like, I should have known, but it's like, but how could you know?
Exactly.
So how can you help us today? Because what most people want is, how can I get them to stop using? Did you feel like that?
Yes. One thing I thought is how could you do this and love us? I know you love us. I know you're a good person. It's just crazy. There's no understanding it, but you'll try to reason, and then you'll think. But I will say it's not has nothing to do with whether they love you or not.
Because Derek did love you.
Yes, it's nothing to do with that.
And he loved your children.
It's his problem. Yes. So that was what the first thing just blew my mind. And then I think the natural tendency is to think, well, maybe if I prayed harder, if I was a better Christian woman, or if I I shouldn't have left that money out. Oh, I should have said this, and maybe, or I shouldn't have said that. And it has nothing to do with any of that. I learned that I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. And then I also can't reason. If they're using, you can't reason with them because it's not them.
Right.
And
they're really in an altered state of mind.
They are. And they won't seem it, though, because they're very clever. It's like they'll do whatever or say whatever. They'll lie. They'll steal. That is what drug addiction is. Simply, it's the truth. Yeah. And you have to realize it. But when you live with it, you're going to try to change them and reason and all of that. That's why we need help. Yeah. We need help just as much as they do.
And that's why, Valerie, I'm so thankful that you're being so brave to come and to talk about this, because I think so many times we focus on the person that is addicted, and certainly they need help.
Yes, I mean, it's obvious that they do.
But all these other people in the family, and maybe many of you that are watching, we may not realize that we need help, because we may look at our lives and say, okay, but I'm not addicted. I'm trying to help them stop doing what's wrong and come over here and let's do what's right and let's be happy. And so I'm imagining, anyway, from what you're saying, is that, you know, slowly you start to come to some of these realizations. But I would also think, maybe, did you even know where to go to try to get help?
I think the first place I called was Cocaine Anonymous back then. It was a long time ago. And it helped me. It was a group. It was like NARNAN, or Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, yeah. There's NA and AA, and then there's NARNAN and Al-Anon. And those are helpful because you're going to learn some stuff, and they have brochures, things that you never knew. So that was my first, that opened my eyes big time.
Was that hard for you to go?
It was hard, but it's so important. It's so important to get help and get educated. No matter what you do, get help. It's not selfish to take care of yourself, because you cannot change that person, but we can change ourselves.
Yeah. So you went out and you got help. Cocaine, what was it? It was
cocaine. It was called Cocaine Anonymous.
And now, of course, there are many other options that we have available, but you were using what was available at that time. And so when you start to get educated, do you start learning a little bit about enabling and codependency?
Oh, yeah, but I definitely didn't know about enabling. I mean, I remember putting money back. He managed a fast food place at one time. And he stole money and I put it back. You know, just really, I should have allowed him to reap some consequences. I was enabling him. But when someone's using and you're working, you're supporting him, you're giving him a place to stay. He may or may not have a job. You're making it so that he can continue to use, and that's coming up.
That's a hard conversation to have, because I would think, Valerie, that some people watching, maybe you're a mom, dad, maybe your spouse, you feel like, well, at least if I'm giving them a place to be at home, that they're not out on the streets. Right. And is that good?
No, it's not. It is, and I'll speak as a wife. A lot of reasons you think, well, I've got to keep my family together. You don't know what to do, you know, and but it's better to recognize the elephant in the room and deal with it instead of trying to make everything better, because the spiritual law, whatever you sow, that you shall also reap. Well, I'm interfering with that because I am covering up, and every time he never sees he has a problem. Because everything's smooth. You know, I have a place to stay, I have food, I still have my wife, I have my child. I mean, I can still use. And, I don't think he thinks that consciously, but that's what we do, thinking we're helping, and they're not reaping from what they're doing.
And when you say reaping, you mean it's just really, if you even just give the example of, if you have $100 and that's all you can spend, and you go spend that $100, you reap a consequence that you can't buy anything else anymore. So if you keep giving that person money, they don't learn money lessons. So you're saying, not that you didn't love Derek, not that you didn't want to keep your family together. Of course you don't want him to go out on the streets and use, but you were protecting him so that he could really keep using and keep being high. And his life, not that it's okay to use drugs, but he wasn't experiencing any bad consequences, only you were.
Right. And, you know, and I guess those of us that are trying to help loved ones, we need to get to the point where we get help ourselves, support, celebrate recovery. Whether you're a parent or loved one, celebrate recovery is fantastic.
Yeah.
Even if you are, I mean, you're crying a lot, you're sad a lot, you don't want to go and be around people. It's embarrassing. You should go anyway, because most of the time people there are hurting too, and it just brings the walls down. You know, it just, it opens the door for God to minister to us through other loving people, the body of Christ. And if we don't share our pain, how are people going to love? How do we love one another, encourage one another, pray for one another? How do we do that? So if Satan can keep us isolated, he's you know.
Well, of course, because then it's you and your thoughts. And there is, and I want to say this gently, but there is even that kind of philosophy in the church that you should really just pray for your husband or pray for your wife or pray for your kids and not do anything else. Was that helpful?
I think you should find a Christian person who understands drug addiction. It's very important because, you know, or you might get, well, honey, if you stay with him, he'll be okay, you know. And he is the one that's choosing to leave you and your children or whatever by choosing the drug over you.
And bringing all of that into the house for everybody, And I think that what you said is so right. A trusted person that understands addiction, because let's be honest, if we're not addicted, we don't understand addiction or the nature of it, that it takes over the person. It may not be what they want to do, but they're addicted, and so that is who they are, and that is what they're doing at that moment. And do most people have enough willpower to change on their own?
No. And, you know, they may say, well, honey, I've been clean for a week. You should trust me.
Exactly.
No, you shouldn't.
It's in the past. All right, we've got to take a break. We want you to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to pick up the conversation.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
When I truly turned my heart to the Lord, He took every sin I ever did away from me.
God really is your other half. God, He's the only person who can really, you know, fill those holes and cracks in your heart that you're so wanting someone to fill.
It's no good to have a big dream if you're not putting yourself in motion to go after that.
The blood of Christ is the only cure. It gets down to the root of every single thing that ails us. There's not an addiction, there's not a generational curse, there's not any root of sin, there's nothing that the blood of Jesus cannot cleanse.
Visit MonicaSchmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your event.
If you are just joining us today on Bridges, we're talking about drug addiction and how do we respond if someone that we love is addicted. Do we enable them? Are we codependent? Are we doing some of these things and maybe not even realizing it? Today's program is to help you and to help you understand maybe what kind of help you need and how to go and get it. And Valerie, again, I appreciate you coming to share your story about Derek and his drug addiction. And I'm glad that God answered a lot of prayers and that he's clean and sober and that you guys are together now. But it really took you, Valerie, getting help, having enough faith to trust God, because you said one of the things you feared was to get out on your own. Could you make it just on your salary?
No, not on paper. But because this happened, I was able to see God's supernatural provision. Just amazing things. Just amazing things. Yeah, I could just tell you a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I know that your heart. I know that the reason that you said that you'd come today was that you wanted to help people see that. So, let's just say, what if? What if there's a woman or a man watching and you know that your spouse is addicted and they keep in and out and they come back and they say, okay, but I relapsed, I used, but I haven't used now, in 3 weeks, so take me back, trust me.
Well, you can't trust them. So, but you can change yourself. And the first step is to try to go find a Celebrate Recovery. There's thousands of them. And if there's not one that fits you for whatever reason, go to another one. Same with church. Go to a church. Get to know somebody. Pray about it. I don't think it's a good thing to be living with someone who's actively using. They're stealing. They may say, well, I can't believe you would take me away from our children. Well, if they grow up in that, there's a good chance that they think it's normal. They become a drug-addicted person themselves, or they marry someone like it. But if we go on, and as for me, I remember going to a church, and a new church, and I was hurting so badly because of the situation. But I'd sit in the back and just cry, and push through, and just every Sunday. And then not too long after that, I was leading a Beth Moore study. I mean, just to let you know, God can use, and so God will meet whoever that is trying to learn not to enable. Please educate yourself. Google enabling codependency, drug addiction. And once you learn about tough love, realize that it's great that you learned about it, but you got to hear it over and over because it's one of the hardest things. It goes against your heart. Yes. But you got to hear from support people that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. And God will, one step at a time. As you open yourself up and let people help you and be real, He's going to give you the next step.
That's right. That's right.
You might say somebody's watching this and say, "Oh, I need to leave. I need to kick my husband out," or whatever the deal is, and they're tormenting themselves. I've got to do it. I got to do it. You don't have to make a decision today, but know that if God is leading you, there's going to be some neat things in your life. God's going to provide. He didn't intend for us to allow. When the Israelites went astray, God did not allow them, He allowed them to reap consequences so that they would come back to Him.
Well, and that's why we discipline our children.
Exactly.
This is why we teach children that you can't go out into traffic. This is why there are consequences. You can't leave our house to go out and do XYZ activity because you didn't do your schoolwork. We all, this is why God He gave the law so that we would know what right is and what wrong is. And so while we're having some really tough conversations, and honestly, I wish none of us had to talk about any of this stuff. I wish that drugs and substance abuse and all of that, I wish it just wasn't a problem, but it is. And what Valerie is saying is like, it's one step of faith at a time. You don't have to do it all today. She's saying, seek God. Get into a good community like Celebrate Recovery or Al-Anon. Get some people one step at a time, and as you take that step, God will give you the next step. And so there came a time obviously, Valerie, that you were, not that you were ready to be on your own, but that you knew that's what you had to do for the safety and security of you and your child.
Yes.
And God provided.
Yes. There were several separations. I filed for divorce a couple of times, several rehabs. I mean, I'm thinking in one particular rehab, I remember Derek was saying they weren't fair to him or something, I don't remember. And I was worrying about it, you know. And I remember talking to his sweet Aunt Julia, and she said, "Sweet Valerie," she was like, you know how we say bless it? She was looking at me like, "Honey, it's not a resort."
Right.
You know. you know, and but when you love somebody, you're blind to a certain degree, and so you need other people who can see things.
Right, and thank God that we're blind to some stuff. And what I mean is, it's okay for people. You can love those that are addicted. God doesn't say don't love them. That is okay that you loved your husband. What wouldn't have been okay was for you just to allow him to keep with that and keep in the house. That part would not be okay.
Yeah, they need to have problems. Normal people have problems.
Yeah.
The drug-addicted person needs problems because it feeds their victim, you know. And so he was feeding, just for that example of him being in the rehab, and maybe somebody wasn't doing something right, and it probably wasn't fair. I mean, it's just
because it's not fair.
Yeah, but it's between him and the Lord, you know. And my aunt said, maybe it's a good thing, so maybe it'll help him not want to go back and work on himself, and you know.
Yeah, it's hard to see that at the time, and yet you say you were separated a few times and you filed for divorce one time, so you're coming to us as a person who has like lived this life for years.
Yes, and God doesn't waste a hurt. And I do want to say, don't feel like you're selfish for wanting to be happy, and you know, because even though your loved one or spouse is making wrong choices, it's okay. When we do something that is good for ourselves, it's like saying, God, I trust you with, you know, this person. And so I trust you, and I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to, because he loves us. We're his children, you know. And the enemy would want us to be all messed up because of their problem.
Yeah. Because it's a way to take everybody out.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a way to take everybody out. It's like, okay, so this person has this life-controlling problem, this addiction that can cause physical problems. You can go to prison. I mean, legal problems, there's all of that. And so if that's happening there, and then you've got all these worried family members who cannot enjoy life, who aren't moving forward.
Right, exactly.
The whole family is being taken out.
Definitely.
And you're saying that if we'll be just that one that could step up in faith to say, God, I just trust that you have better than this.
Yes, definitely. He loves Derek, and it was between Derek and God, and so I had to live, and it's so neat how God did some amazing things. I mean, amazing things. I remember a Christian recruiter getting in touch with me and placing me all over Atlanta, and some of the jobs were over my skill level, you know, and I typically struggle with a fear of failure, so if I'm out of my comfort zone, you know, but I mean, God's grace was, and I remember thinking, I feel like Monica on Touched by an Angel. I don't know if you remember that program.
I do.
But here I am. I don't know where my husband's at, and I'm sorry for him that he's going through that. But God is using me anyway. And I felt like that I was on a mission when I'd go on a job and I'd be minister. It was amazing, and I'd minister every job I went to. I ministered to somebody, and the people would say, they literally said, God sent you here. So God owns everything. He can provide for you. You need to go his way, and he'll take care of you and your children, and he'll restore. If the spouse or loved one chooses to get help, it's amazing what God restores. I mean, homes, families, it's nothing to God, you know?
That's right, that's right. And sometimes, Valerie, it takes one person in the family being brave enough to say, God, I trust you with this. It's a huge mess, but I trust you. And so part of what we're saying today is like, if you love someone that's addicted, maybe a teenager, a grown child, a spouse, an extended family member, trust God enough to know that he's got good for you and that he just wants you to step out in faith and let him love you.
Amen.
Let him bring good people into your life, like at Celebrate Recovery. Let him give you a community, because you are hurting with the heartbreak of someone not doing what's right, and that has legal and physical dangers. And so we've got, Valerie, just 2 minutes left, but you mentioned restoration, and because you did this God's way, and you know, the best you could, one step at a time, because none of us are perfect. Right. And what you're talking about has to be just so hard. But you and Derek are back together now.
Yes, let's see, 2003, he came to Renewed Life Ministries in Woodbury, Tennessee at the time.
As a patient,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. And it was, I mean, we were totally over, no more. And I think that he just, he realized that he had lost me forever, and he thought, okay, God, I'm gonna either die or this time I'm surrendering to you. And so that's how that went. And then since, let's see, what is it, 2018, so 15 years. We got back together in 2004, and then 15 years, and now he's actually director as of 2010 of it, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah. Of Renewed Life Ministries.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of him.
And do you trust him now?
Oh, yeah. Praise God.
Yeah.
But I do. I just, it's such a hard thing. People need to get educated.
Yeah.
There is a, on rlmo.org, the Renewed Life Ministries website, there's a, under the blog tab, it's called Loving Them to Death. And it talks about, it's just a letter I wrote, but in a nutshell, it talks about all of this stuff.
Yeah. And so people might want to go there today. So we're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming. I encourage you to go to that website and that blog, Loving Them to Death. Get yourself the help that you need, and let God love on you. Let God help you in this huge problem. And you know, none of us ever know how God is going to work things out. But what we do know is that when we trust and obey him, it's always going to be good. Yes. We're out of time, but we say goodbye and God bless you.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
If you would like to contact WHTN, you can write to the address on the screen or call us at 615-754-0039 or visit us on the web at www.ctntv.org.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.